what do you mean I'm funny? I mean, let me understand this. How exactly, maybe it's me, how exactly am I funny? Like I'm here to amuse you like a clown? Let me understand this. How exactly do I make you laugh?
You're a funny guy.
Oh, hello there. We are recording.
We are recording.
With our brand new camera system, our brand new light system, our brand new sound system.
Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
All we need now is my new partner, my new co-host.
I think that the light is right.
Do you?
I think so.
Yeah.
It looks close enough.
It does. It's like this glow.
But yeah, there's different light settings though, and I hit it with my big sausage fingers when I'm plugging stuff up and hitting record, so.
Daddy, would you like some sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausages?
I'm Dr. Paul.
I am Diet Dr. Paul.
And together we are Rotten Potatoes.
Mm.
If you stumbled on us and say, who are these two who is this one incredibly good-looking guy?
And then, who's his father?
Yeah. Hey. Father, son, boomer, millennial, here every single week, okay?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Every single week for 2 years, including, every Thursday we drop a new episode? Every Monday.
Every Monday.
Uh-huh. And in October,
Every day.
Single day. Did you heard me right? Every single day.
Quit reminding me.
Talking about movies, pop culture, model kits, sci-fi, all movies, not just comic book movies. But
not just the good ones, but the boring ones that he likes.
Film. Okay,
yeah.
Not just movies. Black and white with subtitles. Movies made in 1917 kind of stuff. All genres.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, go back and watch all of our 2 years worth of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
but today's episode is different.
How so?
Because this is the first episode we've ever done on TV shows.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
You're exactly right. It's a good thing that I prepped for that.
Good thing I brought the confetti.
Well, explain to our massive audience exactly what you mean by this.
By like our topic?
Mm-hmm.
Well, normally we're doing more movie-related content,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the first 7 that's going to dive into television, and we're going to do the top 7 comedy TV shows of all time.
That seems like an almost daunting task because there's a lot.
I guarantee you, my list is not anyone else's list. I gave up. I just said, you know what? I'm going to go with the TV shows that I think are the best.
This was hard, and I kept saying, my first thing I wrote down was, we really need a part 2 and a part 3.
And also, this doesn't include animated shows.
That's
a whole other thing.
One. Yeah. And we talked earlier, like, is things like sitcoms versus, comedy sketch comedy like the Chappelle Show or SNL. And we just decided that if it makes us laugh, it's funny, other than animated, we're going to go with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any kind of process that you went through to decide what you would pick? Because there is massive numbers of shows.
Yeah, I think I just went, when it boiled down to it, there are so many shows, and so many shows run for so long, and I think it's very ambiguous as to why they run for so long. You have certain crown jewels of networks where they're just going to run as long as they are going to run, and there's no stopping them. Simpsons. And then there's other shows that were short and sweet and to the point and didn't get a long run, like Arrested Development, where it's really teeny, but it's like very impactful. So I think there's a whole lot to choose from, and what made you laugh versus what makes me laugh is going to be different. So that's why I kind of just leaned into what I like much more for this than any other list.
As normal, I approached it in a much more erudite fashion.
He did research.
Gay!
He used books.
No,
and
and I'm going to go through
numbers.
this real quick. This is what my rubric was. First of all, funny. Funny is
What's a rubric? A Rubik's cube?
a decision-making framework, okay?
Like a Rorschach?
A process by which I scored or analyzed or included. It's like
Oh.
who goes in which category. Obviously,
got
it's got to be funny, but it's not just enough to be funny
Mhm.
because there are so many. I mean, I just mentioned like My Mother the Car, It's About Time, Munsters, Adam Family, Dick Van Dyke. All of these were funny, right? Some of these you're thinking, what? My Mother
Well, no,
the
you
Car?
just rattle them off so quickly sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not enough just to be funny. That also, it needed to say something about the world, about marriage, family, the faith, race relations, whatever. It's not just, again, it's like good comedy is often about something. I also look for things that push the boundaries, that were different. Casting was really important. And the characters within those comedies that you want to see growth. And it's like you don't want it to be one note, that you want to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And my last part of the rubric was maybe things that are less exposed, that people want. Obviously, part of what we do in this show is we want to turn you on to something. You don't want to watch this show to hear and see things that you already know. Like we could come up with 7 shows and say, well, I've watched all of those. It didn't bring anything new to the picture. What I wanted to do is there's at least 2 or 3 of mine that are less probably prominent in the comedy sphere. And you would say, well, I've never even heard of that, or I've never watched it. And then it would go to it and it would enrich your life. We're all about enriching you, baby.
I get what you're saying, and that makes a lot of sense. Because for me, there's shows like Workaholics. I love that show. But it's not saying anything about the world. It's slapstick. It's penis and fart jokes. It's a bunch of these bros that live in a house together. But I think it's hysterical. Blue Mountain State, same thing.
I've never
Football.
heard of Workaholics. Never even heard of it.
It's on Comedy Central. Blue Mountain State's got your boy in it, Alan Richardson or whatever. But that's the same thing. It's not really saying anything about society. But then you have the opposite end of the spectrum. You have a show like Ali G into House, where he's really saying something in a sort of subvertive way. So I think it will depend on what you like versus maybe what you're looking for versus what you're getting. I will say this, for me, a lot of comedy TV shows is about having something light. And me, if I'm doing something in the evening and I'm trying to wind down, a lot of times this is what I'm going to put on, is a show in this vein. So I watch a lot of these. And so I've often gone through in my brain and try to pick through who would be number one. And so I've thought about this quite a bit.
Well, let's kick it off. You go first, but tell me, what of the 7, and I don't know what he's going to say, and he doesn't know what I'm going to say, and there's generational differences here. Of the 7, what's the likelihood that there's any overlap, you think?
Maybe 1 or 2.
Okay. Start with your number 7.
Are we going to do honorable mentions before or after?
Why don't we do them after?
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've got some that I just have to mention if
yeah.
they're not on the list.
Well, not only are the honorable mentions, but I have a list of what I consider no way, no how, no ands, if, and but should never be on anybody's list of top comedies.
Okay. Well,
Make me angry.
all right. So, kicking it off at number 7, and this is a show that I just have experienced for the first time in the last 5 or 6 years. And from the first episode I binge watched the entire series, and that is Portlandia, which I know you've never seen before. This is so far away from your what you're gonna
Demographic.
sit down and watch. But it's from Fred Armisen and Carrie Brownstein. Fred Armisen, you may know him. He was an SNL guy, but he was more of sort of like those ancillary characters that isn't on every episode. But I thought he was hysterical. He's got glasses. But he does this other show called Documentary Now with another SNL guy. And that's hysterical too. There are these documentaries, but they're fake mockumentaries. One's about Globe salesmen in the 1950s, but it's hysterical. So he's got this really interesting, like trendy hipster way of looking at things. And that's really what Portlandia is all about. It's almost like Mr. Rogers in Portland today, but they have all these different characters they play and they're reoccurring. So it's kind of like SNL, but it's also kind of like a sitcom in that they just have these different character sets and they're all, every episode they're doing something different. You'll see it has Kyle MacLachlan is in a few episodes. Steve Buscemi is a recurring character. Jason Sudeikis, but I think it is the It's the best sketch comedy show on television, if that's where you lump it, because it is just so on point.
Is it still in production?
No, I think they recently took it off the air in 2019 or 2018. So it
I've
ran
heard
for
of it before. I
8
think I might have
seasons.
seen it, but I've never. You're right.
Yeah.
I've never watched it.
Yeah, it's really makes fun of the whole like hipster liberal culture, but not in like a mean way. Like they're very much a part of that culture.
Portland is its own. I mean,
And
I've
that's
been
kind of
to-
and
yeah.
it's hysterical. But if you anybody who sits down to watch it, I want to know if you didn't like it, why you didn't like it, because I think it is absolutely hysterical in a way that like SNL just isn't right now.
Yeah. Okay, well, good. I mean, I'm surprised. I would never have thought that you would.
It does for black culture. It does for hipster culture what Chappelle Show did for black culture.
Gotcha.
It makes
Okay.
fun of it, but in like an endearing way,
Okay.
and it makes me want to watch it right now.
All right. Well, my number 7 is a show that you turned me on to, and it's in this category. What I say, something maybe a little bit less familiar, certainly for people from the Boomer generation, and it's the IT.
I was
Crowd.
literally going to say that that's the one that you picked,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you mentioned it because it's not on my list and it deserves to be mentioned.
First of all, it's British, and I'm surprised at how much good comedy comes out of.
I love the dry British humor.
You got Chris Dowd, you got Richard Ayoade, Catherine Peterson, Matt Berry, and it spoofs office politics. It spoofs relationships and dating and sex and the world of technology. It's interesting that this was remade in the U.S. in the similar that they did with The Office. It was remade in the U.S. starring Joel McHale and Richard Ayoade, who played Moss in the British version. It was never actually released at all.
That's what I was going to say. I've never heard of it before.
No, they did it, and in the end, they said it just didn't work. And
Well,
Joel McHale-
who did Iode play? Himself?
he played Moss. He
Okay.
he came back as that character. It really is. This show is all about the individual chemistry among the characters. It's absurdist in a lot of ways. It is absolutely hysterical, and it sometimes just borders on slapstick. But it really is. It starts out, and then once it gets its groove, it really is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's watching over and over and over again.
I'm so glad you picked this. The reason why I didn't make it to my list is because it's such a short running show and there's only like 5-6 episodes a season. So there's literally like less than 20 episodes of this show. It really kicks into gear when the son shows up, the son of the owner
Yes.
on the when
Yes.
he father.
Yes,
When
Matt
he
Berry.
shows up, he's hysterical. I always thought Richard Ayoade would have had a big career on the heels of this, and he never really did. He was in our Neighborhood Watch, and that's the only thing I've seen him in.
Right.
The other cat,
Oh, Chris O'Dowd though is
he's
really
had a big career.
Mhm.
He did. There was a movie, and they made a TV show out of it.
yeah. The Get Shorty.
Get
kind of
Shorty,
thing.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
He was in some MCU movies.
Mhm.
Big fan, and this holds a special place in my heart because I deal with computers a lot, and the whole idea of have you tried turning it off and turning it on again? That's so absurd to think about. But I promise you, I guarantee you, you use Apple devices in any way, shape, or form. If you're having issues with them, you're like, I cannot figure out what it is. Turn it off and turn it on again,
Yeah.
and it will work seamlessly. I got to do it with every student I ever have. Well, Mr. Paul, it's not working. Turn it off and turn it on again. Oh, funny. No, like really turn your computer off and turn it on again. It's going to work.
What's the comedy? And I didn't put it on my list at all, but the one with all of the geek culture, comic book culture.
Oh, Big Bang Theory.
This is, in my opinion, a much better view of the geek culture than that series. And I've seen almost every episode of that. I just think it's much.
I think
more
that
genuine.
it is sort of like a British angle of the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
Less about the home life and more about, I think, the work life.
Yep.
But yeah, I agree. Great show.
Okay.
Great show. Number 6. Good segue. Let's go to more geek culture. Silicon Valley. The HBO television show released from 2014 to 2019 and ran for 6 seasons, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. Creator, you're made familiar with, Mike Judge, the creator of King of the Hill. This is his is a live action show, obviously, but it's based off of or inspired by his work in Silicon Valley as a computer something programmer in the 1980s. But it is hysterical. It's about this guy who has this program that runs this algorithm that compresses computer data basically, and he's trying to make like an MP3 company with it, but he fails and fails repeatedly. But it's how he grows this company to basically rival Google. It's hysterical. It's one of the most well-written shows in that it's always keeps you guessing. It's not like a lot of comedy TV shows are episodic, and it's like, we're going to tie everything up in 20 minutes. So it's very formulaic. You know what's going to happen. This isn't. It turns it on its ear, and it makes fun of that Google culture, this company they called Hulu. It's hysterical. And if you like that whole IT crowd, Big Bang Theory type thing, it's like that, but it's written smart. This is a less slapstick, more realistic look because it's HBO, obviously. So, and immediately now I wish I would have thought of Barry for this list because that's a hysterical HBO show as well, with about a hitman who comes to California and then decides that he has got the acting bug. And I think COVID killed that show.
Well, let me, on behalf of boomers everywhere, say I've never even heard of this show.
Well, it's an HBO show, obviously, so that will make a difference.
Heard of HBO.
But if you don't watch HBO, then you don't get the regular advertisements for it. So it may be something that you've never really seen. I guarantee you, if you spend any time around like pop culture and TV, that you've at least seen a photo or an image of the cast of this show.
Well, let me just say on behalf of boomers everywhere, I can't afford HBO.
Yeah.
Unlike
you have
millennials.
Hulu. You pay, Hulu costs $100 a month and HBO is like $10. Okay.
You don't have Hulu?
I have Hulu. But I didn't.
That's
I'm
the
not
thing
the one
with
over here.
millennials is you have subscriptions to everything.
I don't have Netflix.
Right.
Okay. All right. Good choice.
I don't have Paramount.
All right.
But it is a supremely smart written show.
Okay. My number 6 is also keeping with this theme of less exposed, perhaps less aware, and it is also a British series called Coupling. And it is British and brilliant. Kate Izzet, Sarah Alexander, Richard Coyne, Jack Davenport, and Ben Miles, Gina Bellman. If you like Sex and the City, you will love this. If you like Friends, you will go crazy over it. It's about relationships and dating and growing older, and it is absolutely laugh out loud funny. In some ways, I mean, it's just brilliant. This also they remade in the U.S. And they did bring it out, and it failed miserably. It just really, this is an absolutely amazing series. And Richard Coyle is in my opinion the best character in this, and he left after 2 seasons and was replaced, I think, for the 3rd season. And
he's the funny character.
Yeah,
he was there for a little bit longer than
yes,
that. But yeah,
I know you've seen a lot of.
I
this.
have your DVDs of this season of this show at my home
I wondered where they were at.
because I love it. It's a great show.
Yeah. He has a lot of my DVDs.
I'll tell you why it didn't work in America, because that show hinged, like a lot of popular shows, it comes down to casting. And again, you look at who's casted on that show. All of them nobodies. But since then, some of them have taken on some pretty illustrious film careers.
Yeah. Ben Miles and
particularly the 3
Jack
males.
Davenport. Yeah,
particularly the 3 males, and it have all had big careers in film and TV. But yeah, it's sort of, to me, it is the Friends of British television, and it is, if you watch it, it'll get you hooked. It's really,
I think it's better than
it's
Friends.
hysterical.
I think it's certainly better than Sex and the City.
Well, yeah, because I don't think Sex and the City is watchable in any.
Oh
Wait.
my God, I'm such a slut. Oh, let's have another drink. Oh my God.
I'm on Sex in the City. What's up, Miranda? Oh, I'm Samantha. I have sex with everyone.
Okay.
But yes, it's a hysterical show, and I'll agree with
Okay.
everything you just said. All right, now you're all about these shows that people have never heard of, and I'm just going to tell everybody right now, the rest of my list of shows everybody knows, and they're shows that are probably on a lot of people's lists, but that's why they're there. So number 5, The Kings of Self-Deprecation. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, baby.
I am untethered and my rage knows no bounds!
I've
His
tried.
groan is matched equally by my fervor.
I've tried. I really have.
It's the best show. There's nobody takes themselves less seriously. And why I think it's so special is because this was done before YouTube and social media. This is the original film it with your own money, put it out there, and hope that someone latches onto it, which is why Rob McElhenney, Glenn Howerton, and Charlie Day are the creators of this show and still are the creators of this show. This thing has some serious power behind it. Little TV director Matt Shackman is now out here directing the Fantastic Four movie that's coming up. From freaking comedy TV to doing that it takes a lot. But do you know what the term "to be based" is? The idea that you're like so socially aware that you just see things for what they truly are. Always Sunny in Philadelphia is the most based television ever, a television program of all time, maybe more so than like South Park. My one thing is that I do think that it's kind of wearing out its welcome. It probably needs to wrap up. It's been on for 16 seasons since 2005. But yeah, man, it's such a good show.
Isn't Danny DeVito in this?
He is. And he's what makes the show.
I like his sandwich commercials better than the show.
Oh my goodness. That when he shows up,
tried.
It's so good. I'm not saying it's not.
You
for
have turned
everybody.
me on to a lot of shows and movies and everything, and I've tried. I really did.
I wouldn't think this is for you because this is so outrageous and just over the top that it's just not your.
Some outrageous.
Yeah, it's not your
Chappelle show. Outrageous.
Yeah. I'm surprised you liked Eastbound and Down.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that was almost on my list too. That's
Me
a good
too.
one.
Okay. All right. My number 5, which really could be my number 1. It's that good. And it's also in this category perhaps less familiar, and that is Sports Night.
Okay. Yeah, you've let me borrow that before.
Oh, this is, first of all I got to say is the word Aaron Sorkin. This guy is really... he's just kind of amazing. He's almost channeling Norman Lear in terms of changing.
Oh yeah, I love
world,
when he channels Norman Lear.
Changing media. I mean, we're talking about West Wing, A Few Good Men, Social Network, Trial of Chicago 7, Moneyball. Aaron Sorkin has a way of using dialogue that if you're watching a TV show episode or a movie and you hear the dialogue, immediately say, okay, this is Aaron Sorkin. I mean, it's just how he uses words. David Mamet is another. He's a playwright.
He has a tendency of not tackling things that are like not interesting and making them interesting too.
Yeah, the casting on this is absolutely amazing. You've got here Josh Charles, Peter Krause, Felicity Huffman, Robert Goulet, and William H. Macy, and it tackles a whole range of subjects. First of all, you're dealing with office politics and relationships and dating, but it's more than that. It's homelessness, it's racism, and because it's the story of a sports television, it really is like ESPN, and it gives you a glimpse of what it's like for sportscasters or television, doing things in a live way. But it deals with homelessness. I mean, it just is. There are episodes in this that you will be laughing and crying in the same episode. It is just about amazing. And the fact that they chose sports. You ever think about how many movies that we have that are about, why is sports so interesting? Because sports are about drama. Sports shows, it's like that ebb and flow of cheering and the tension of the challenge and the fight. It's a perfect venue for comedy and a perfect venue for sort of changing how we view about the world. Amazing show. My goal is with the first 3 episodes that I did with IT Crowd, Coupling, and Sports Night, is you need to watch these things and they will change you. They will transform you inside.
Yeah, that's when I tried. It didn't get me. But, I didn't hate it. It just wasn't like...
Well, you never watched the entire series. I'm telling you, there are episodes that you could put on. The storylines and sort of Robert Goulet actually had a stroke and had to leave the show and then comes back into the show.
Maybe that's your problem, is you didn't watch all 16 seasons of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and that's why you don't like it. All right, moving on, I guess. Number 4. All right, and this one might be a little debate, where we get into some contention with some people, because people want to argue about where these things are going to lay here. Okay. Number 4. I already know you're going to hate it. Parks and Recreation, 2009 to 2015, 9 seasons. It's just a good show. I know you hate it. It loses a few points, and the reason why it's like 4 and maybe not number 1 and number 2 is because it ripped off The Office's format. It stole it completely. You know, it's the mockumentary thing from its Spinal Tap. But it turned a bunch of nobodies into household names. It also, I think it should deserve some points because the lead in this, I'm not really a fan of Amy Poehler, and I still love this TV show. So I think that just goes to show that some of the writing and some of the extra players in this are just really substantial. But you got Aziz Ansari, Nick Offerman, Chris Pratt went from this, who is a literal nobody, to he's makes me sick how often I see him on television. Aubrey Plaza's doing the same thing with her film career. Adam Scott, Rob Lowe. It's just, yeah, I mean, it's hysterical from top to bottom.
I tried.
You didn't try hard enough.
Probably. I should try harder.
Yeah, it really, really heats up around I think it's season 3.
Oh, so I only had to watch 3 seasons to get to the point where
7. And that's when Adam Scott and Rob Lowe joined forces and become part of the team.
Oh, that would have made it so much better.
Oh, but sports night.
I'm telling you. All right. Well,
He's being mean. That's
I know I'm being mean. All right, my number 4, All in the Family. Norman Lear transformed TV, and All in the Family was his
I
vehicle.
didn't know you were going to come back to Norman Lear later.
Oh, I'm telling you, we owe a debt of gratitude to him. Yeah, think about this. We are on. It came out on the heels of Vietnam. It came, the women's liberation movement. I mean, the whole, looking at things like racism, and so you have this vehicle where you put sort of the culture up in front of America, and people were able to say, you know what? I don't think that's right. I mean, you have one of the most despicable characters in all of television, Archie Bunker, that was still warm and still lovable in his own silly, stupid way. This movie, or this TV series, was absolutely just amazing. It looked at blue-collar America. It looked at racism. It looked at relationships in, with the genders. It really just broke all kinds of boundaries. On the downside, it opened the door for people to say whatever outlandish, stupid thing that they wanted to say. And we are suffering that in today's world. I mean, it really did. With All in the Family is they said the quiet part out loud, and America says, you know what, that's not a good thing. But it changed television, changed media.
Yeah, not a fan.
Of course not, because it's about something.
No,
it's not about parks and
from
recreation.
1935.
Portland. What? No, 71.
Oh, close enough.
I was alive then.
I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
All right. No, that was your number what?
4.
All right. Number 3. And I know this one's not on your list because you already mentioned it. And this one probably would have been number 1 on the list, but it just wore its welcome out in the worst of ways. And that is The Big Bang Theory. 2007, 2019, 12 seasons. From famous TV producer Chuck Lorre, who's just done everything. But yeah, it lost its way around like season 10, season 12, when it's all about these guys and their inability to come to, connect with the world. They just don't get women. They don't get relationships with other peoples. And so when you take that away from the story, it made everything unfunny all of a sudden. Because Sheldon is a character who just cannot connect with a woman. There's a whole season about his inability to connect with a woman. And all of a sudden he's married now. It just took so much out of it that I think it really hurt the show. But there's 12 seasons of this is some of the most rewatchable television there is.
Yeah, I watched everything. I mean, I probably watched 10 seasons of it. and it was interesting and funny and geeky, and I love the fact that it brought comic book culture too.
Mhm.
You know, that was something that was just not, you know, this is before
Yeah, it's usually
Marvel movies. kinda
people are
took over the
elevating
world.
other cultures,
Yeah.
not geek culture.
Yeah, and it was funny. It didn't resonate in the end for my 7, but it would be in my
Yeah.
honorable mentions.
I've often thought if there's one television world that I'd like to be a part of, it probably would be The Big Bang Theory. I think it just seemed like they have a lot of wholesome fun.
Well, I'm all about wholesome fun. Okay.
The end.
Yes.
They got stars on the Walk of Fame for crying out loud.
Carol O'Connor does too.
Oh, you're
Norman Lear does.
one person. Yeah, Norman Lear. Your whole list is pinned up by Norman Lear,
No,
and you just badmouthed him too.
how?
I don't know.
I
I
didn't.
stopped paying attention. Number 2 or number 3?
Number 3, The Office, the British and the U.S.
You can't.
I'm
That's
doing it,
cheating.
okay, because they are nice. When MASH, the TV show MASH, they's had some major casting changes, and when that happened, the world sort of thought, well, that's the end of MASH, but that's not what happened. In fact, it got even better. In the same way, when Ricky Gervais, the brilliant British series, when it was adopted in the U.S., personally, and I apologize, I thought it's going to die.
I
It's
did
not
too.
going to be
I did
any
too.
good at all. But it built on that. It enhanced that experience. Reimagined by Greg Daniels. The cast on this is just amazing. Jenna Fisher, John Krasinski, Steve Carell, Ed Helms,
Wait,
Rainn
this is your number
Wilson.
3?
This is my number
Well, my
3.
my number 2 is The Office, so it's
Daily Double.
Daily Double, so we can both talk about
We
it
can
now.
do that. It's about office politics. It's about family. It's about dating and relationships. It's about corporate culture and sort of what it says. It's absurdist at times. It never ran out of steam. It continued. I mean, throughout this, even when Carol left towards the end and they're sort of saying who's going to take over thing, it was still just the guests that they brought on that were just brilliant. You know, I can't, like you've talked about Lucy Show, I can't really rewatch a lot of the Lucy Show. You know, they're great, but I can rewatch Office. I call it we've talked about the Shawshank Redemption experience, where if you're clicking, on television, Shawshank, you got to stop.
Mhm.
If The Office is on, you've got to stop. It's
Mhm.
just brilliant writing, casting, it is just an amazing show.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. It's perfect. I didn't like it as much when Steve Carell left, but I don't think it was bad necessarily in the same way that some shows, when they made changes, they are bad. I just thought it was a little bit of a different show at that point. I don't think it hurt the show at all. But yeah, you took a bunch of literal nobodies and now they have careers
Yep.
built on it. You know, Mindy Kaling, Jenna Fisher, John Krasinski, Rainn Wilson, Ed Helms, Rashida Jones, all nobodies and had careers. Steve Carell had a little teeny bit of a career.
Mhm.
But yeah, it makes the most mundane thing possible super interesting. I watch that show every single year from front to back. It's just something I do. I don't know why. I absolutely love this show. And there was something else I was going to say. And I forgot in the middle of the sentence. Oh, I still have never finished it.
Really?
I have not watched the last half of the final season, and it's going to sound so stupid.
I think you've told me that before.
Because once I watch the last episode of The Office, there's no more new Office ever. So I still have Office that I can go enjoy that I've never, ever watched. And that is the only comforting thing about this, because there is no more Office. Now they're starting to use them in commercials, and they're all super old, and it's so incredibly depressing.
That's why I never finished the rest of Park and Rec or Portland.
Yes, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there would be no more. I'm kind of surprised with The Office that of how many people that are passionate about the U.S. version have never seen the British. And I wonder if people then would go back and watch the British series, whether they would, because it's different. I
Mhm.
mean, there's an overlap in there, but it is. I love both of them. I
Yeah, well,
thought
it's like
I
you're saying.
cried when it ended, when the British ended.
Yeah, I think it's different if you experience the American first and then go back. You probably wouldn't like it. But the first two seasons, it's pretty much scene for scene. They're identical. It's just washed in American culture versus British culture.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I digest.
Okay.
Well, you can go back to your number 2 now, because that was my number 2.
Okay.
A Daily
My
Double
number
Dip.
2, Saturday Night Live. This one just hits all the dots, okay? It's funny, it says something, it pushed boundaries. The cast, think about this. John Belushi, Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy, Garrett Morris, Gilda Radner, Jane Curtin, Dana Carvey, Mike Myers, Billy Crystal, John Cusack, Robert Downey Jr., Jimmy Fallon, Chris Elliott, Phil Hartman, John Lovick. Fake commercials, fake news, stand-up comic hosts, cutting-edge music, and it went on forever, culminating in a feature film that was brilliant to see. I was there for all of the Saturday Night Live. It is really just an amazing show, and it's dangerous because it's live. It used to be that comedy and television primarily was live, right? And how hard that would be, and how that would really sort of you're like practicing without a net kind of stuff. Oh man, what to do that for that many years? It's brilliant. It changed the world.
I'll tell you why it's not on my list, and it's all those names that you mentioned. Not a single one of them not a single one of those cast members was on the show in the last 25 years. My point being is that it was so great 70s, 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s. It's like since then it's hit a stone wall, and it is, to me right now, it is completely unwatchable. I watched the 50th anniversary episode. Now, I'm not saying that it was all entirely bad, but it would go from like, I'd see a sketch like, oh, that's hysterical. And then it would be an 8-minute sketch. And I'm thinking, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And we got 8 more minutes of this to go.
But you've talked about some series that sort of lost their steam after 10 seasons.
And they get hammered for it.
But
and,
you didn't not leave them on your list because
you didn't let me finish. Having 2 or 3 bad seasons is one thing. Having 25 bad seasons is a completely different end of the spectrum. And that's what I'm saying is maybe if we were just talking about in 2002, it probably would have been on my list. But the longer it stayed, the farther it drops down my list till eventually it's not on my list anymore. And then I didn't even write it down. I never wrote it down on my list once to do this.
They could film paint drying every week for the next 10 years and it would still be on my list.
And that's my point. That's why it doesn't matter. It's at this point, it's working purely off of goodwill that it earned for 35 years of an amazing TV show. I'm not trying to disparage that at all. I just think that it's just, at this point, they're just doing it because it's something they've been doing. Yeah. And it's SNL. It's got the name power. It's never going to go away. That's my point. I'm not saying that it's wrong.
I got you. You know what? We've only had one overlap thus far. So this is now where we're going to have our second one.
You think so?
Oh, I guarantee it. I know exactly. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead and say it.
Number one. Arrested Development. What did you?
No.
That, my good sir, is the greatest comedy television show of all time. There is not a better written show. There is not a show that I get more excited when I hear that music, that whatever the flip, that jinka, 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 brinka, brinka, brink. I don't know what it is, but I thank Michael Mitchell, Hurwitz, and Ron Howard every day for blessing me with the most beautifully casted television show of all time. I mean, it reinstated Jason Bateman into having a career. It brought us Michael Cera, for better, for worse. Jessica freaking Walters, Jeffrey Tambor. I could watch them alone in a room sleeping, and I would probably laugh. Will Arnett, David Cross, Tony Hale with his hook hand, Portia de Rossi, Alia Shawkat. It's the best cast of all time. It's the most rewatchable TV show of all time. It's the funniest TV show of all time. And without the rebooting of this television show via the Netflix original, I don't think Netflix originals would have ever been a thing. And thereby Prime Video originals never would have been a thing. So I think we can thank freaking Arrested Development for that as well. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
It just occurred to me, my problem with your list today. It's shallow.
What's wrong with Millicent?
It's
Shallow.
I
No, get
totally
outta
agree
here.
that it's funny.
Get
It's
outta
very funny, but it's shallow. It doesn't. It's not earth shattering. It didn't change. I mean, some of the ones that I talk about, all in the family, it changed comedy. Saturday Night Live changed comedy. MASH changed television.
MASH
Yours-
isn't on your list.
I know it's on. And I'll tell you why I didn't.
Don't
Just-
take credit for MASH's changing the world and you didn't put it on your damn list.
I didn't put it on there because I want it for the 3 that I wanted to expose people to, because everybody's
That's
seen MASH.
cheating. That's 10
No,
items on a list. So you just can't do it
No,
properly.
it's just it's shallow.
he just can't handle the
I
truth.
really thought that
He
we would
just
have our
can't
number
handle
1
the
would be the
truth.
same.
What is it?
I Love Lucy.
What? What plane of existence has your brain been sitting in sludge that made you think that my number 1 pick would be I Love Lucy?
Because I think you are media aware.
I have seen 5 minutes of that damn show my entire life.
Well, that's
And
your
I
problem.
hated it.
Let me tell you something.
I love Lucy. Blah, blah, blah,
It
blah,
came at a
babaloo.
time when women were essentially just cardboard cutouts.
And again,
when
here,
they had no
just
creative power.
do your thing. Do your thing. Go for it.
No creative power, that they were paid less than men. This changed media, not just comedy, but it changed media. And you would not have any of the shows on your list if it were not for the Lucy Show. It broke all of the rules. First of all, she had a Latin co-star, Desi, Cuban, that she insisted, and she had the power to make that happen because nobody wanted that on television. She had the power. She instituted the 3 camera in 35 millimeter, which changed filming. Not only did it change filming, but how those 3 cameras would allow you to be able to do more physical comedy, and how the editing of that, because it was on 35 millimeter, it was a show that they were able, and they retained the rights to it. We would not have syndication were it not for I Love Lucy. It allowed that to happen. They went on, Desilu Studios went on to do Star Trek, Mission Impossible, Untouchables, Man-X. It changed media forever. She broke boundaries. When she became pregnant in real life, she made it part of the show. They didn't allow you to show pregnant women on television at that time. It was earth-shattering, and it was all from the power of Lucille Ball. Women power, baby.
I'm glad you're so worked up about this. But my problem that I have with that pick is the same problem that I have and why most people put no stock in award show. And it's rather than picking the show that you think is the best comedy show, you picked the show that broke a bunch of boundaries and did a bunch of great things, which is awesome. I'm not trying to disparage any of that, because clearly she made some things that changed television and film. Wonderful. But does that mean that her show was one of the best, or was the best comedy TV show of all time?
Trust me, if you
Not
sat
buying it.
down and
Not
you watched,
Buying it.
if you watched, you would find.
I can guarantee you could hook me up to whatever EKG machine you got, and my brain is not going to think that show's funny. Arrested Development blows that show out of the water.
Apologize.
Oh my God.
I apologize to the internet.
Close.
Okay.
I feel bad for letting you say that.
Thank you so much for joining us on our last episode
You're
of Rotten Potatoes.
So sure that I was going to pick I Love Lucy. Oh my God.
Oh, I kind of threw up a little bit in the back of my mouth.
He just slipped and bumped his head.
We need part 2. Well, let's talk about your
honorable mention.
Yeah, honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions. Some that need to be talked about. I mentioned earlier the Ali G show. Such a great premise and idea, and connecting sort of young people with politics. Beautiful show. Eastbound and Down. I love that show. I think it was a little too slapsticky to make the list. And Third Rock from the Sun. I struggled. I almost had that on my list with Portlandia. It was this close, and then last but not least, Married with Children.
I love it. Love them all. I'm going to take an inhale because I got a list. MASH, Andy Griffith, Gomer Pyle, USMC, Hogan's Hero, Red Skelton Show, another one of these, The Honeymooners, Frasier, Taxi, Roseanne, Friends, Blackish, In Living Color, Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore, Cheers, The Chappelle Show.
I like the Chappelle Show. Of all those you mentioned, Chappelle Show is the only one that sounded any good.
You've never seen the force of nature that is Red Skelton.
Okay, well, how about, have you ever seen the force of nature that is Red Dwarf?
Yes.
I like that show.
Sci-fi.
Firefly?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's not really comedy. It's sci-fi. It's got
That's
an
a
element.
comedy show.
Nah.
That's a comedy
No,
show.
it's a
It's a
sci-fi.
comedy sci-fi
It's a
show.
sci-fi show that has laughs in it.
So loose, like just I Love
Instead of
Lucy.
a comedy that has sci-fi in it.
So like I Love Lucy.
It's a comedy.
It's science fiction.
No.
It's not.
Superman was on Lucy.
That's how I know it's science fiction.
I have a category here, not on my list, no way, no how, no ands, if, and buts, and should not be on anybody's list.
It's my list.
Seinfeld. I do not find that funny whatsoever.
And yeah, I'm not a big fan.
Golden Girls, Sex and the City.
Golden Girls was almost on my list. That's a hilarious show.
Oh, you've lost your mind.
You've lost
Sex
your
and the City and
Yeah.
Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls. Did you just put that on there because you know that was going to be number one? He tried so hard to put that on his list. Now I want to watch Arrested Development. I want to see Buster lose his hand.
I want to go back and watch Sports Night. I want to watch Coupling, and I want to IT class. Flight of the Conchords. It's also on my
Flight of the
honorable.
Conchords that's another very rewatchable
You turned me
television
onto that
show.
one.
HBO, baby.
Which I can't afford.
I like it. Again, that's New Zealand. I like British.
Okay. So, do you have anything else to say? Any apologies to our audience out there?
I'll apologize for anybody who goes out to watch I Love Lucy after this. I want to know what people think, what they think is better, Parks and Rec or The Office. I know that's a big one for people because they're so similar. I'd like to know what people think.
I always like the one that breaks the mold.
So The Office.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
The British and the U.S. version.
Cue Ron Swanson throwing his computer in the dumpster.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us here today for what I had to say, and I apologize for everything that he had to
Why
say.
I oughta.
Yeah. We hope you like us, subscribe, all of those kind of things. And we're we listen to your feedback, your comments. Tell us what you think. What would be your number one comedy of all time? Other than I Love Lucy kind of thing. So, yeah. Yeah, show. We will not see them at the movies. We will see them
In the living room.
in the living room.
Kill me